Have you ever wondered how a small community, surrounded by enemies from every direction, managed to survive against overwhelming odds without surrendering its faith or abandoning its principles? What Islam's 1,400-year history says about the Battle of the Trench is that the greatest victories are often achieved long before swords are raised, because true success begins with unwavering belief, careful preparation, wise leadership, and hearts united by trust in Allah. Several years after the migration to Medina, the Muslim community had already faced enormous trials that tested every aspect of its character. The Battle of Badr had demonstrated that faith could overcome superior numbers, while the Battle of Uhud had revealed the painful consequences of disobedience and the importance of discipline under leadership. Those difficult experiences were not isolated events, but powerful lessons that strengthened the believers for an even greater challenge approaching from beyond the desert horizon. The leaders of Quraysh had not forgotten their earlier defeats, and many tribes across Arabia continued to fear the growing influence of Islam. Determined to eliminate the Muslim community once and for all, they formed a massive alliance that included powerful tribes and hostile groups who shared a single objective. Their strategy was simple yet terrifying. Instead of attacking alone, they would unite every available force, surround Medina, crush its defenders, and erase the message of Islam before it could spread further across Arabia. News of this enormous coalition reached Medina and filled the city with understandable concern, because the number of enemy warriors far exceeded anything the Muslims had previously encountered. Families realized that the coming days could decide not only their own future, but also the future of Islam itself. Despite the danger, panic did not control the hearts of the believers, because Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught them that fear should never replace faith and that every challenge should first be met with wisdom before force. He consulted his companions, demonstrating that leadership in Islam values sincere advice and collective responsibility rather than personal pride. During these important discussions, Salman Al-Farsi, may Allah be pleased with him, shared an unfamiliar military strategy he had witnessed in Persia. He suggested digging a deep trench around the exposed parts of Medina where enemy cavalry could easily advance. Arabia had rarely seen such a defensive method, making the proposal both surprising and innovative. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, immediately recognized the wisdom behind the idea and accepted it without hesitation, proving that truth and beneficial knowledge should be embraced regardless of their origin when they serve justice and protect innocent lives. What Islam's 1,400-year history says about this remarkable decision is that genuine strength belongs to those who combine faith with intelligence, courage with planning, and reliance upon Allah with determined effort. The Muslims understood that miracles never excuse negligence, and trust in Allah always walks beside sincere preparation. As the first tools struck the hard ground around Medina, the believers were not merely digging earth, but laying the foundation for one of the most extraordinary chapters in Islamic history, while an unseen storm of destiny gathered ever closer beyond the silent desert. The days that followed transformed Medina into a place of relentless labor, determination, and unwavering hope as every believer, regardless of age or social status, contributed to the enormous task before them. What Islam's 1,400-year history says about the Battle of the Trench is that extraordinary achievements are built when a community stands together with one purpose instead of allowing fear to divide its hearts. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, did not remain distant from the work or merely issue instructions from a place of comfort. He carried soil with his companions, shared their exhaustion, endured hunger alongside them, and inspired everyone through his personal example of humility and perseverance. The trench gradually stretched across the vulnerable approaches to Medina, becoming a remarkable symbol of wisdom overcoming brute force. Food was scarce, the weather was harsh, and many workers tied stones to their stomachs to ease the pain of hunger. Yet their determination never weakened because they believed every strike of the shovel was an act of worship performed in the path of Allah. During the digging, enormous rocks sometimes blocked their progress, making the work seem almost impossible. On one memorable occasion, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, struck a massive boulder that resisted every effort, and with each powerful blow sparks flashed brilliantly into the sky. He spoke with confidence about future victories that appeared unimaginable, while the believers were still surrounded by hardship, reminding them that Allah's promises extend far beyond present difficulties. Those words strengthened tired hearts and replaced despair with renewed conviction. Eventually, the trench was completed just before the Confederate armies arrived. Their coalition represented one of the largest military forces ever assembled against the Muslims, bringing together the Quraysh and numerous allied tribes determined to destroy the Islamic community forever. As the enemy approached, expecting a swift assault, they suddenly encountered the wide trench stretching before them. Their cavalry could not charge across it. Their plans collapsed instantly, and confusion spread throughout their ranks because this defensive strategy was completely unfamiliar in Arabian warfare. What they believed would be an easy victory suddenly became a prolonged siege. The Muslims remained inside Medina, guarding every vulnerable point while maintaining discipline despite the growing pressure surrounding them. Days turned into weeks as cold winds swept across the desert. Supplies became increasingly limited, and uncertainty weighed heavily upon every household. At the same time, another dangerous challenge emerged from within. Became a prolonged siege. The Muslims remained inside Medina, guarding every vulnerable point while maintaining discipline despite the growing pressure surrounding them. Days turned into weeks as cold winds swept across the desert. Supplies became increasingly limited, and uncertainty weighed heavily upon every household. At the same time, another dangerous challenge emerged from within. Certain groups who had outwardly claimed loyalty began spreading doubt and discouragement, while some tribes considered breaking agreements that protected the city. The believers now faced not only powerful enemies outside the trench, but also the painful possibility of betrayal from within. Suspense filled every passing day because no one knew whether the next sunrise would bring a massive assault, internal treachery, or a decisive turning point that would forever change the course of Islamic history. Yet amid this overwhelming uncertainty, the faithful continued placing their complete trust in Allah, knowing that patience during the darkest moments often comes just before divine relief appears in ways no human mind can predict. As the siege continued, the pressure upon the believers reached its highest point, and every passing hour tested the sincerity of their faith more deeply than ever before. What Islam's 1,400-year history says about the Battle of the Trench is that the greatest moments of divine help often arrive when every worldly solution appears to have disappeared. The Confederate armies remained determined to destroy Medina, while the Muslims continued guarding the city with patience, discipline, and unwavering trust in Allah. Hunger, exhaustion, and uncertainty surrounded them, yet they refused to abandon the principles that had guided them through every earlier trial. The painful lessons learned after the Battle of Uhud had transformed them into a stronger and more united community. They understood that obedience to righteous leadership, sincere cooperation, and steadfast patience were not temporary qualities for times of comfort, but permanent foundations for surviving moments of overwhelming hardship. Then, when the enemy believed victory was finally within reach, Allah changed the course of history through means beyond human expectation. Powerful winds swept across the battlefield with astonishing force, tearing apart tents, overturning cooking fires, scattering equipment, and filling the hearts of the Confederate forces with fear and confusion. The severe weather made it impossible for the coalition to maintain its position, while mistrust and frustration spread among the allied tribes. Their unity, which had appeared so powerful at the beginning of the campaign, slowly collapsed under the weight of disappointment and uncertainty. One by one, the tribes abandoned the siege and returned to their homes without achieving the objective that had united them. The Muslim community remained protected, not because of overwhelming military strength, but because faith, wisdom, perseverance, and the help of Allah proved stronger than the largest alliance Arabia had ever witnessed. The failure of the Confederate armies marked a decisive turning point in Islamic history, ending the era in which the enemies of Medina believed they could eliminate Islam through direct military force. From that moment onward, the balance of influence across Arabia began to change, opening the path toward future victories and the peaceful spread of Islam. The Battle of the Trench continues to inspire believers across generations because it teaches that true success belongs to those who prepare wisely, remain united during hardship, and place complete trust in Allah without surrendering to fear or despair. Every challenge faced by the early Muslims became a lesson that strengthened their character and prepared them for greater responsibilities ahead. Their story reminds every generation that temporary difficulties should never cause permanent hopelessness, because patience supported by faith can transform impossible situations into remarkable triumphs. What Islam's 1,400-year history says about this extraordinary event is that civilizations are preserved not merely by strength or numbers, but by justice, wisdom, sacrifice, steadfast belief, and unwavering reliance upon Allah. The legacy of the Battle of the Trench remains a timeless reminder that sincere faith, united hearts, and righteous leadership can overcome the greatest obstacles, leaving lessons that continue guiding humanity more than 14 centuries later. If you're benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.